amazing show. I'm so happy to be here and blessed to be here and grateful that I'm here to talk to you today about why you are amazing. Because if you forgot, you are amazing. That's what this show's about, to remind you that you are amazing and to remind me that I'm amazing, because I forgot that this morning when I was taking my son to school. And it happens all the time with outside influences and the world coming at us. The flow of information and life happenings can beat some of us down and make us feel less than, not enough, hurt, wounded. You know, and it happens so often, and with the way media is and everything we're reading and seeing in the world, you know, there could be a lot of negativism out there, and that you internalize. And I see it all the time, and it's chronic with the news situation we have, that people are taking the world's troubles on and you know, failing them, and it's affecting their lives. But this is about you and your personal life, and how to remind you that you are amazing and why you are amazing. So we do that in a number of ways. I mean, I share my life experiences. I've been through a lot, and through my journey of life, I consider myself an ordinary Joe. I don't have any great degrees or anything else that lets me be here today to talk to you about how you can become amazing. I'm not a social worker, I'm not a psychologist or any type of therapist or anything like that. I'm an ordinary Joe with life experiences who was willing to grow and try different things to become a better person. And through this journey, I've met a lot of amazing people that heal people, that are beautiful souls, that have helped me. And my show, this show, is about bringing those guests on to talk to you about how to become that amazing person, how to not become, because you are, but how to evolve and how to know that you're amazing, and to use certain tools and techniques that will let you remember that you are amazing. And when you slip into the times that you don't feel that way, these specialists' tools and techniques will remind you how to get back to that place. And that's the biggest gift I have now. With all the work I've done, I had a conversation this morning about it. The biggest thing is identifying the feelings and knowing that I'm feeling this way, and what to use and how to use it to get back to that space of, you know, I'm an amazing human being, I have a lot to offer. And so that's what we're about here, my experiences and all my guests, and we're here to talk to you about that today. The other thing that's really important, because the world is filled with self-help books and people who will tell you how to get there, how to make that $1 million, how to heal, how to be successful in a sales job. And there's so many things that out there that are telling you, you know, how to be happy. Just turn on Sunday morning TV and you can watch how to become a real estate millionaire in a short time with no money. You know, there's so many things out there that will tell you that. But what I've found, no matter what modality there, whether it be healing or getting ahead in life, no matter what, if you don't have a core belief system that encompasses all these philosophies that can't be debated, that are the premise of you being that amazing person, if you don't integrate those into your life, you hit walls all the time. And I see it every day. I see it. And those core principles that great religions and philosophies use, and that I say can't be debated, and I know some of you out there are saying, I can debate you, Ed, I'll debate you about it. You can, but when I talk about my life and my experience, they are real, man, and they are powerful. And they are to love, give, serve, and forgive, and to have a layer of gratitude encompassed in your life, throughout your life, from your waking moment in the morning to when you go to bed at night. A feeling of gratitude heals. Gratitude is the best pill that was ever invented if you so choose to take it. It'll cure depression, it'll cure all sorts of things that get stuck in your head if you use this gratitude. I'm not saying if you have clinical depression, or I'm not a doctor, like I said, I'm no expert. I'm an ordinary Joe from a blue-collar town, and I'm a simple guy, but I just know for me, when I get into myself and depressed, I use gratitude and it works. So those core principles of love, give, serve, forgive are so important. And you can do all those in like 10 minutes. And if you're in an office cubicle and go out and care about somebody, ask them how their day was doing, or how their daughter's doing who's having the problem. To serve, to in your community, right? If you have a very busy life, the coach who's coaching the football team, I know because I've coached before, it takes so much time to go up to the coaches and say, do you guys want coffee? Coffee's on me. After the game, can I buy you guys coffee? Can I carry that bag for you? As little as that. As little as that. That's beautiful. to give. The philosophy of giving. Religions talk about tithing, giving money. Practice random giving. Be in a restaurant and give somebody a $30 tip on a $10 bill. And if they were really nice and the service was great, and make their day. See how that makes you feel. I guarantee you'll feel awesome. And forgiving, that's a big matzo ball, that one. But and it's a lifetime for some of us to forgive. But it's a core principles that, like I said, many of the world's religions teach. So those underpinnings are a big, big part of the show. And every week I'm going to talk to you about them. I'm sorry, but every week I'm going to tell you about those core principles. Today, part of being that amazing human being is healing. A lot of us have traumas, you know, and we go through events in life, the loss of a parent. I had just a little thing like my mom going to work, and I had to go to preschool, and I was like this nervous kid. I remember like it was yesterday, holding onto the tree and her pulling my legs to get me in the car to go to preschool. You know, you can minimize that, but that was trauma for me. And after talking with people and going through stuff, I see how that has affected my life. And so trauma is a huge thing in life that keeps us from a beautiful, fulfilled relationship or a great career or making us feel less than. And we want to talk about that today. And it's when you think of trauma and how it pervades our life, I came across a couple of pictures that we're going to show in a minute of, there's a great trash heap of plastic in the ocean. In the Pacific Ocean, with the different currents that flow, there's like an island of plastic gook. And it goes deep too, and it's really, there's a lot of pollution there. You know, it's collected because of the currents and everything. And there's a lot in other places of different oceans, there's a lot of pollution. And when I saw the picture, and you can see the picture now, when I saw that picture of the toxic waste dump in the middle of this beautiful ocean, I thought about the show today, and I thought about trauma and healing. And so that's an amazing picture of, I didn't even know that existed until I found someone who came into my restaurant who talked to me about what she was trying to do to raise money, to raise awareness of that. But toxicity out there, like toxicity in our body, that maybe we don't know it's there, and it just sits there and pervades our existence, right? Just comes in, you know, because you easily discard things. We discard things, or we minimize things, and we push it under the rug and all that stuff, and it ends up in a toxic dump. For not all of us, but for me anyway, that's what I can share. For me, a lot of stuff piled up until I got rid of it, and started to get rid of it in my mid to late 20s. So we have that aspect of it, and then we have the aspect of the healing. And when you look at this next picture shows you beautiful fish in an aquarium. The water's filtered, and they filter, and that's the mind, what I want to talk about, the mind filtering and healing that we're going to talk about today with my guest. You see the beautiful fish. That's what you are. You're a beautiful human being. You need the filter. You need the filter when you're watching CNN, constantly negative news, or you're hearing people saying you're not good enough, or you need that. You need that filter. You need affirmation. You need this stuff to remember that you're an amazing human being and to push that stuff aside. So we're going to talk about, this sounds corny, you becoming a beautiful fish today. Well, maybe that doesn't sound so right, but it's going to be a cool discussion with my guest today, Kathryn Michaels, who I'm going to be bringing out in a minute. She moved up to the Exeter area from New York City. She's a lifelong New York resident, and she's an amazing person who's been in the healing field for all her life. She had this sense when she was younger about the world, and she chased that sense, and she's been reading voraciously. She's been 14, and she's going to talk to us about trauma release and how to heal and how to identify. So I'm really excited to have Kathryn here today. So come on out, Kathryn. Welcome, my friend. See? You are an amazing woman.
Well, thank you. And thank you for doing this amazing show about a topic near and dear to my heart.
You're welcome. Well, you are the perfect guest today. There's so many things you can talk about from the experience that you've had in life, starting from New York City, born in New York City, and your experience there. But since you were 14, you chased books on the world. You saw a lot of materialism in New York City. You were on the Upper East Side.
Yes,
there was
I was.
a lot of money. You saw a lot of privilege.
A lot of unhappiness in spite of the privilege.
But you noticed that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at a young age, and it really caught your interest, and you started seeking. You started seeking right away.
Exactly. It didn't feel authentic from a very young age.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, this is all around me, but it's some sort of crazy illusion.
And that's why I feel that some people are just are born to be healers like you are, and your growth over time. You know, going to school, you went to Johns Hopkins, and then you went to NYU for the last 2 years for film.
Yep.
And then you got into the news industry.
Yep.
And you hung out with Peter Jennings. You were close, really close. I'm only
No,
kidding.
not that close.
No, I'm only
but I
kidding.
knew him since I was little.
But you were all around the news business, and you saw people who had a lot of wealth and had accolades thrown at them all the time.
Power,
and you saw that.
exactly.
And you wanted to be a newscaster, right?
I wanted to be on air for some time.
Yep.
To make a difference until I actually did it.
Right. Right. And you've been on air before?
In high school in New York City, we
Yeah.
did a cable TV show and a few commercials in my youth.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now she's on
And
the You
now
Are
the
Amazing
best
show.
one of all, this show, which is actually the
Yeah.
first show I'm really happy to be on.
Yeah, it's a springboard, and we may do another show. We'll tell you about that maybe later, but if not, stay tuned. Me and Kathryn as co-hosts.
That'd be nice.
So you were in the news business trying to find your way, and then somehow you ended up at a dinner with Lawrence Rockefeller and Barbara Marx Hubbard, who's a very well-known metaphysics teacher, an amazing woman who came from wealth herself, and through pain of whether it be marriages or life or whatever, she kept on seeking again, and she became a woman who's done amazing things, writing, and helped so many people. How did you end up with that dinner, and what happened? Did you work with her? How did that?
Okay, so one thing I just want to say about her, she's a futurist, and what was so wonderful about her is she always, with all the chaos in the world, she knew that there was some sort of positive intention inherent in all this craziness we're going through to birth us into a new way, which was really beautiful. I met a friend of mine. I had not yet become a clinical social worker, but a friend of mine. I read a lot, I studied a lot, and I knew a lot about Native American traditions and medicine ways, and said, you have to meet. It was sort of fortuitous, said, you sound just like Barbara Marx Hubbard did a few years ago. I want you to meet her, because I was very passionate about trying to get people to look at other paradigms and ways of being. So I said, are you free for dinner? I think you should work with her. And I said, sure. And I showed up at a hotel at this beautiful dinner party, and there was Lawrence Rockefeller and his wife, who had funded Bill Moyer. Is Bill Moyer the right name? And
so.
Joseph Campbell series, and it was quite something. And we just started talking about our interconnectedness and how all the great philosophies and religions at their highest really say the same thing about how amazing we are and powerful and full of spirit. And it was an instant connection, and I got hired to work on her documentary and help write it at that time.
That was the popular book. What was the book?
The Evolution of, The Evolutionary Journey.
That was a very, very popular book. I mean, it was well read, and then they were going to make it into a documentary, and with your film background, you were going to be writing the script.
Yeah, I helped with the script. I mean, it was kind of taken from the book, but we interspersed it with creation myths from all different traditions and beautiful images, interviews.
You know what I love? You've been at the highbrow hotels with Lawrence Rockefeller. That was more on a spiritual level because Barbara Marx Hubbard, but you've been on the material side where you saw this world of wealth, but you always that's what when I first met you at my restaurant, I sensed your intuitive nature, and I sensed this gift, and your history from that point, even before from you were 14, I had to take notes because there are so many things. You learned clinical hypnosis. Yep. You did Ericksonian hypnosis, the father of like hypnotism, right? Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which runs through so many different books on self-help and healing. Tony Robbins learned NLP. Yep. I had a guest on the show who went through training. And then there was EMDR, eye movement desensitization processing. Is that right?
Eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
Yep. Mindfulness meditation.
Yep.
She's a shaman. She's a shaman too, guys. She's Peruvian shamanism. They're like healers with all different ways to heal, and that's an amazing thing. But she took all these things of the world and healing methods and modalities. I always say healing modalities.
Right.
You took all these different modalities, and then you said, you know what, I want to ground it in something more concrete. And then you studied clinical social work.
Right.
Right.
At NYU.
At NYU, was it a master's program?
Yeah, it was
just
a master's
clinical?
degree in clinical social work, which would make you can be a therapist, a licensed healthcare professional. Because I wanted full understanding in every way of the human condition and human beings.
That's why I knew when I first met you, you were the real deal. And I talk, the important thing about this show and what I do is I vet all the guests. I mean, because I was out in Sedona, and on every corner there's a healer, an energy healer that you are healed, and
exactly.
you know that says they're healers or do. And how do you know? I mean, how do you know, and how do you not be taken in? And but what I found was I found a good portion of people that do amazing things that it's freaky. I mean, I get goosebumps. I'm in awe. There's like 10% of healers out there. That's the number I'm throwing out. I have no idea. I know that I don't know. But what I found is there's a small group of real healers like yourself that are willing to seek and question. You didn't get into shamanism and say, oh, that's the way, that's the answer. I'm going to shave my head and do this, and this is all I'm going to do.
Right.
You kept on seeking. You looked at so many different things. And then after you did all the areas of outside of the box, the energy healing, the shamanism and hypnosis and NLP and all these things, you decided to go more concrete because maybe you could help more people that way.
Right.
So you sought out different methods, and that's why I'm excited to have you on the show today to talk about trauma and trauma release. And you know, I talked about the toxic wasteland in the ocean that none of us know about, and how the currents, you know, brought it there. You know, and in my life, like I told you, I've had things that were there that I'm still uncovering that I didn't know I had trauma. You know, for whatever reason, I brushed it under the rug. I hid it with alcohol for a number of years. I did all these things and I had no idea, and I didn't know it was holding me back from a fuller, greater life.
The trauma affects a very deep part of your brain, your sort of limbic reptilian brain, so it goes pretty unconscious for most of us. So it's very common not to be aware of what you're holding when it comes to trauma.
So where do we start? I'm here with the people in the local area who are going to be watching this in YouTube. And there's so much out there, and a lot of people are in therapy and trying to find out why this happened. Why do I keep on going into these relationships?
Right.
You know, why do I keep on whatever it is, right? You know, where do we start looking at this for the ordinary Joe who's sitting at home? You have to identify where you're at. Are you happy? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Are you a happy, fulfilled human being? Do you get excited about getting up in the morning?
Me personally?
Yeah. Well, I know you are. I know you are. You're thrilled.
Everyone else. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, where do you start? We'll talk about more specific things. How do you identify that stuff? Is it that simple?
Identifying your trauma?
Yeah, first identifying that
where you are.
They should do some of the things we're going to suggest.
I would say.
Are you happy?
I would suggest taking a moment and looking inside and seeing if there are places in your life that you're feeling stuck that keep coming up. I would posit that you may have unconscious trauma.
What do you think percentage of the population has unconscious trauma?
99.9%.
So guys and gals out there,
you're not alone.
You don't have to look. You don't have to look. There's some trauma there. We'll find it for you. Well, if you're happy, joyous, and free and jumping up and down every day and helping and loving people and doing all this stuff, and there's not one problem in your life, or so you think, then you may be fine. But for the people who want a more fulfilled, happier life, let's talk about releasing. And I know you helped me with, I don't want to guide what you talk about first, but you helped me with this shaking method. Because a lot of trauma is stored in our muscles. Why don't we first talk about that? What's that theory of a lot of trauma that happens is stored in our muscles or our body?
Right. Just a little bit about trauma, just so you know what it is. A trauma is when human beings, especially in the Western civilization, you get a shock to your system. It could be something as simple as stage fright when you're in first grade, you're called on and you're shy and you don't know what to do and you sit there like a deer in the headlights. Or it could be something, a sudden death, a sudden loss. In non-Western cultures, typically, where they're more emotional and sometimes heart-centered, they're more prone, and everyone can experience trauma, to acknowledge that I'm scared, I'm afraid, and sometimes they'd shake, they'd cry, and release and pass the trauma through their bodies. I don't know if I'm explaining this that well. Here,
No,
typically here, when a trauma happens, we resist. I mean, it's sort of a natural instinct now to resist. So if a shock comes, because can anyone remember feeling like that moment that you freeze up and move, and then you're like, okay, and relax. Well, every time you're having that kind of reaction, you're actually storing that tension in your body and not releasing it. And if you look at nature, particularly like take a deer or a little tiny baby, a deer can, let's say, is almost caught by a lion and survives. In all the wildlife footage, the deer would be completely frozen, because freezing is your first reaction to a trauma. And then the deer will completely shudder uncontrollably all over, release the tension, get up, go on its way. They don't need therapy. They can have a happy life after that. Human beings, we don't do that. If we were taught at an early age that, okay, you're afraid, okay, take him and go in the corner and shake it off, we'd be a lot better off. So over time, we accrue this kind of tension in our bodies, and we put facade over it. We sometimes, would drink, use substances, and it builds and builds, and it needs to be released. And it's one of the biggest impediments to a lot of therapy, because you can cognitively help people see areas where they have suffered and had trauma, but it's getting it out of the physical body that once you can do that, healing happens much more quickly. Does that make sense?
It's it's something that I would reject in the past.
Really?
Personally, I would reject it in the past. I don't reject it now because I know it's true, through experience and through trying.
Yeah, or you look at the PTSD and veterans who come back.
Yes.
I mean, it's a real diagnosis.
Yeah.
Something happens shocking, and they constantly relive it.
Right.
And they've studied that typically when life flows through us, and we can be flexible, experiences come into our field and pass through us, and they're processed like a story, kind of like they just processed in a linear way, like, oh, this happened to me, the beginning, middle, and end. When trauma comes, they found that it's like a lightning bolt, and it shocks your brain, and it isn't stored in just the normal place we store memory. It's stored piecemeal all throughout the brain. And so you can constantly get triggered by this. I mean, even as simple as, you've had a relationship and someone acts a certain way and suddenly you go off the handle and you don't know what's happening. I mean, I would think it's from some sort of usually traumatic thing that happened in your past that wasn't stored properly. It always feels bigger than it is. So that's why trauma is real, and it's very important for our veterans and people to help them. A lot of the strategies for PTSD is to learn to sort the trauma, to go back to that inciting incident and put it in context, sort it properly in the brain. And there are lots of modalities people are developing to do that. Does that okay?
It does.
Okay.
And like I said, because I had my experience, and that's what the people have to believe out there, and that's why I do this show. Because I went through, during my divorce in 2009, I was doing network chiropractic, and their theory is it's stored in the muscles, and that's why you have back pain and other things. And I was feeling great one day, and I went in to see Tammy Gampel. She's in Exeter, and Dr. Kimberly Higney is also a local person who does network chiropractor. And I was feeling great. I didn't feel better. I thought I forgave, and I feel good. And she touched me a certain way, and I started crying. And I called her a witch doctor, and I wanted to leave. I'm like, well, where did that come from? And she released some trauma that I didn't know I had.
That's great.
And recently, I was at your house, and you took me through a shaking process where you fatigued the muscles, and then there was a point where I shook for 20 minutes, my lower body, and you said it moved up higher, and then you did some other things, and it increased, and I felt great after that. And so, no, I'm a believer, and but tell us about the different modalities then. Tell us, there was the shaking, but what would be a class 101 on that? What would be the first thing you would do if somebody had some trauma?
Well, it depends on the level of trauma. Always when trauma, not in your case, because I know you really well, you have to actually find a place of safety for the person.
Okay.
A moment, whether it's through meditation, a safe place. And it could be as simple as teaching them, this is for the highly traumatized, to take a pause and just feel their feet on the floor. Because people who are in trauma constantly are here, but they're not here a great deal of the time because they're in anxiety, they can be, like I said, quite anxious, blink in and out for fear of the trauma. It can really disrupt someone. So typically with when I work with mentally ill, chronically addicted, who had a lot of PTSD, the first thing you do is create safety. Because if you don't have the safety piece, you can do other modalities. And, you know, we grow at a certain pace, and you don't want to always rush things. So I'd say simplistically, seek safety, find a safe place, learn to meditate. If you have a favorite place in your yard, you know, just sit there and look at the trees and breathe deeply.
So meditation is one?
Meditation, I'm saying for people who don't even meditate, which is kind of a meditation, think of a beautiful place in nature that you like, make it up.
Okay.
So that when you start to do your trauma work, you have a safe place to go to.
Gotcha.
In the event things come up. This would be particularly for people who had, you know, child abuse issues, really horrible things, and vets. So in any program, you would do that first. What I did with you, how would you segue? I could give the name of the book even, which was, I brought because I want to remember it. It's called The Revolutionary Trauma Release Process by David, sorry, I'm looking down at the
Berceli.
Berceli, PhD.
Yeah.
Now he integrates, I have so many friends in this, you know, field, and I've tried all sorts of trauma things in EMDR. And from personal experience, I went through something which I would highly recommend. Can I tout it? Called the Hoffman process, which is the most thorough therapeutic process I think that's out there today from experience. Wonderful. It goes back to your formative years, your pre-verbal years, and really excavates the wounds and some of the things that we pick up and beliefs about ourselves that simply aren't true.
It's a 7-day process.
It's a 6 to 7 day process.
That's in California and Connecticut.
Yeah, it's just
a few times a year.
Amazing. When I came back from that, so you spent this intensive week really excavating and looking at all those limiting beliefs that we have, or because we all have them. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. I'm not lovable.
We did want to
I'm
talk
an
about that.
imposter.
Yeah.
You know, all this stuff that comes up, and it rewires you. It's really powerful because it's thorough. I know a lot of these healing modalities, we'll get to a lot of those, but this was the most thorough thing I ever did. When I came back, I still noticed I felt good, but I felt, I don't know, blocked somehow because I brought up so many things that I had released in some ways and looked at, but I could feel it in my body. And serendipitously, a friend of mine who's very big in trauma said, because there was something I'd known about shaking medicine, said, I just found out how to learn to do this for yourself, the shaking medicine. Can I come over and I'll teach you? And I was thrilled. She came over, we did this process, which is really like, it's not intellectual, you don't have to talk really, it's almost like doing a yoga session. And I shook.
You let me watch the Patriots when we did it last time.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Mike.
he really wanted to, but it works even when you're doing that, because like I said, the trauma that it's hard to release, it's on a different level of your being. It's part of your limbic brain, your reptilian brain. It's
felt
you know, we're
amazing
human
afterwards.
beings. And I did this with her, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I felt it was the perfect end to this process of excavating and looking at and releasing wounds and traumas. It was like, to me, the missing piece. And I felt energized, sleeping better. It was a complete high, and it didn't go away. And I do it every 2 weeks, and like every human being, we're gonna have dips. And if I feel a dip coming on, I do it as well.
Do you suggest getting that book? Or is that's more technical?
Yes, if you're in the healing profession now and you have experience with trauma, get the book.
But what about the ordinary person?
Well, the ordinary person, get the book too. I would say if you're an ordinary person, there are all these great tools to remember you're amazing. I'm a big proponent of seeking, I mean, when you have a therapist or a teacher you go to, it's just going to make the process go more quickly. You do the work, but you're facilitated by someone who has experience to get you where you need to go in as fast and safe a way as possible.
And so you moved up here last year, and you're getting grounded now, and you're the perfect person for them to contact. You can go to Kathryn's website. We'll put it up on the screen. It's, what is it?
EarthkeepersFoundation.com.
EarthkeepersFoundation.com. You're not set up with an office yet. You're going to take your time seeing what you want to do exactly, and
I do have an office. I have a home office.
Yes, of course. It's a beautiful place where we did the shaking and what have you. So you will be open for taking clients in the future? Yeah.
But I really, what I'm passionate about is helping people remember who they are, that they are amazing, and giving them the tools they need to realize this so that they're not, what's so great about these newer energy medicine techniques that you can integrate in clinical work is they're very effective and they're fast. So in clinical, not even clinical, but like psychotherapy, you sign up for like 6 years.
Right.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
being
for
a
me.
child and the teddy bear. And,
No, I mean, there are
you know,
lots of good things. It's not to say it's not good, but there are new and actually old ancient wisdom from earthkeeping. Well, that's another story. There's lots of wisdom that can make the process go more quickly. So my goal would be to have someone see them, depending, 4 times. And you can be done. It's very effective.
I think that's and we have to close now, but I think that's the important thing, because you've been exposed to so many different treatments and East and West and philosophies and hypnosis and everything that I believe that. I went through some therapy where we did inner child work, so I know that. I went through your shaking, I went through all different things, and I have to side with you on therapy is definitely a good thing, but a lot of the things you do, I would start from there first and see how it worked. And so thank you for coming on the show, and again, earthkeepersfoundation.com. And Kathryn will be set up, and you'll see more stuff on that. You have a few programs coming up with some shaman twins from Peru
That's
coming up.
right.
You're doing a program. You're bringing them down to New York City for
Yep.
a week, then up to Exeter. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, and to end, everyone, it's what Kathryn said, to identify the trauma. Sometimes it's just as easy as going and meditating and being still. But bottom line, you probably have some trauma. And if you can just, accept that and notice that that may be a roadblock and be open to some of the different things we talked about, there's a lot of people, including Kathryn, who want to help you. And we were talking about affirmations to end the show. We were talking about, what did we come up with? I accept myself.
Yeah, I would say even put your hands on your heart, which
Yep.
is a powerful center, and say that I accept myself as I am. And this might be hard for some people. This isn't to say you can't change, because growth is part of life. But part of trauma accrued in our bodies is we resist our experience, right? We resist the natural to have fear and to have doubt. And if you can sometimes just accept where you are and embrace it for just a moment, just try it on and see how it feels, because trauma will pass more quickly through you when you do this. It's okay to cry, all these things.
Thank you. And we have to close with that, but if you do that and you feel discomfort, and that's why you said try it on, if you feel discomfort, you should start doing some of the things Kathryn suggested and find somebody out there, go to her website and start seeking, and you will find an answer. We love you. You are amazing. Have a great day.
Thanks.